Hello, everyone, and welcome to one of my authors' chats of the week. And I will keep my eye out for my co-host, and as always, we'll be talking about books, writing, publishing, and everything in between. And as I let this app kind of notify everybody, we'll get going in just a moment. But yeah, hope everybody had a lovely weekend. It is a Monday when we're recording this, and it was a busy one for me. But that's good. Now I can announce, and I've been saying this on various lives since I have been moving. I am finally out of my old place and into the new one, and the fun begins of hanging everything and setting all that stuff up. I know that's so much fun, but it also means I will have more time focused back to writing, so that's always a good thing because I miss having a normalized schedule, it seems. But let me keep my eyes open for my co-host, and we'll go up. There we are. Whoop, no, come back. We'll get things rolling. Let me make sure actually my volume is up. Hello.
Oh, there I
hear
am.
you, but I do not see you.
I fixed it.
Yay! Hi, how are you?
Hello.
By the way,
good. How are you?
Good, and I love your haircut. I'm just saying.
Thanks. It needed to happen. My poor hair has been getting old, and it's getting thin, and it needed a little zhushing,
Hey, I feel like my hair needs a little shushing, so I don't blame you. I just haven't found the time, and that's my excuse for everything in my life. I have no time.
Right. Yes. Yeah. My husband eventually was kind of like, you are not okay. Oh, that got deep really fast. So I had a really bad anxiety through the beginning of the year. For some reason, the end of winter seems to be really not great for me, like emotionally, right? And my husband at some point kind of had to step in, and he's like, you're not healthy right now, and you need to do a thing. Like, something needs to change for you. And this was one of those, like, I have to start taking care of myself things. So yeah, it was part of the whole let's be a real person and not a goblin things.
Well, I mean,
I just like to jump
seasonal?
into the uncomfortable stuff.
Yeah, no, I get it. But like, what is it? There is something to that. The seasonal something disorder. Is it like sad?
Seasonal affective disorder?
Yes. And I was gonna say it does. It happens to a lot of people that the winter season will get you in ways that it doesn't necessarily affect other people.
Yeah, I mean, so I grew up in Washington State where seasonal affective disorder is super, super common because it just gets so gray during the wintertime and you rarely see the sun. But we live in New Mexico now and it is sunny like 350 days out of the year. But I feel like this is something very much related to hormones and I'm heading into the perimenopausal phase of my life. So everything just seems to go wonky, and it's for a limited time. It's not like an all winter thing. It's not fall. It's like the end month of winter the last few years has been where I'm like, I think I need to call my doctor, and like do a thing. Yeah, I didn't mean to introduce such a topic right at the beginning of the conversation, but
Hey, and it's okay to talk about your health, your mental health, all that kind of stuff. We're here as a community to support each other and understand. But let's get back to your books because you have been, I feel, quite prolific, and I have the privilege and honor to say I actually met you now face to face in November. So it's really kind of cool. Hi, Derek. That to see your achievements and how much you're blossoming as an author and taking your writing career. So I'll let you go from the basics for anybody who doesn't know. Introduce yourself and what you write, and we'll go from there.
All right. Okay. First, thank you. That's super, super sweet. Basics. My name is Nicole York. I write under the pen name Nicole McEwen. I'm a fantasy author, and I have right now 8 books on the market, 3 in a science fantasy trilogy that has to do with like multiverse theory and all that kind of stuff. It's very like science heavy. And then the other 4 books in the Gwen St. James affair, which is Vanished, Spellbound, Moonstruck, Vanished, Moonstruck, Spellbound, and whatever the last one was, Bedeviled. And then the most current release, which came out in January, which is Blood and Silver, and that one is a fantasy romance. And I'm super interested in competent female characters, and the people that they surround themselves with. And I think the more I learn about myself through the way that I'm writing, the more I find I'm interested in the idea of the heroine's journey. Only I don't think I like the current framework that it's in, because the framework is still very built around the feminine connection to masculinity, and even the heroine's journey seems to be tied really closely to trying to move into the masculine, realizing that it doesn't fulfill you, breaking away from it. And I'm like, no, why does it have to be there in the first place? Like, we can exist separate from that. And so I feel like a lot of my work definitely like is exploring the edges of those themes. So I tend to write really hyper competent females. And that seems to be like a theme, even though I don't think I intended to do it. But yeah, so fantasy with a romantic subplot and chicks who were kicking butt.
I love it.
In various ways.
I absolutely love it, and it seems to be working for you, because I know your fan base is loud and proud, it sounds like, and you've been using a lot of taking technology that we have now and really making it work for you in your writing, because you, if I remember correctly, you've been publishing some of your books through Ream and some other of these kind of newer platforms. Is that not right, or am I mixing people up? So how's that going for you?
No,
like,
you're
I've
totally
heard
right.
good things.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. I've been lucky enough. I don't know how it happened, but I've been lucky enough to have a really amazing community of readers who are so supportive. And like you said, they're vocal and they're so wonderful. And some of them have decided to follow me over on Ream. And I honest to God think that that is going to be the future of a lot of, like, not only the kind of beating heart of my publishing business, but I would really love to see so many more authors there, because it's not dependent on a platform that is looking to take advantage of you. It really was built by authors and readers for authors and readers, and they're constantly updating it to give authors more control over their work and to give readers more access in ways that, like, whichever ways authors choose. But for me, I think the main thing is, not only does it give me direct access to my readers in ways that they can read what I am creating as I'm making it, and they can give me their feedback at any time if they choose to. They can comment on, line level writing and say, oh my God, I love this scene. Or even if they say things like, this doesn't seem like something Gwen would say, that's really valuable feedback for me, because those are my core readers. Like, they are a representation of my ideal audience. And so when they have thoughts about things, it's so valuable for me to listen to them. So like, that's a really fantastic way to get like immediate, very targeted feedback about my writing and the people who read it. But in addition to that, because Ream is completely built on what authors want to offer to their readers, as a creative person, as an artist and a crafter, it gives me actually the chance to balance my writing with art. So my readers, my 2 top tiers, they vote on what book art, they make suggestions for which bookish art they would like me to make every month, and then they vote on it, and then I get to go make it. And so that's kind of part of the experience, is that they're getting bookish art and they're getting music and they're getting all of these things that I get to build into my schedule because they are funding it for me. And that's a huge gift, because not doing that and focusing so hard on writing that I'm ignoring those other pieces of myself makes me far less effective, like in general and less happy and centered in my life. So having that means that I'm not when I'm making things, I'm not having to carve that time out separate from work. It's actually part of work now. So there's no guilt involved, I guess. And that's a real gift that they give to me. So I'm really hoping that that becomes a bigger piece of particularly the indie author sphere, but we're seeing similar things happen even now in publishing with Bindery, where you're taking people
Yes.
and you're giving them kind of their own community and using those communities in order to build everything that you publish. So these are the folks who, directly fund my writing, not just by buying books, but by being there in person. So it's a real gift. And I think certainly not for every author, especially for those folks who don't like to be personally engaged. But for me, it's hugely beneficial. And one of my main goals this year is to build that community up more. I'm going to do some giveaways and some like subscriber marathons and things like that to try to hopefully get folks to come in and join. But yeah, I can't recommend it enough personally.
That's good. I'll have to definitely put that on my list of things to kind of try to move towards. I know one of my big goals this year has been moving to the direct. 'Cause I was originally exclusive through Zon, so now I'm trying to move to direct sales and again take more of that control and be able to sell directly to readers. And I think now that I've realized or found ways to potentially do that for my audiobooks, I need to find the time to actually set that up and again build that infrastructure on. But Ream is something that I am fascinated about because I do hear it being talked about more and more in the author community. And that is really cool because if you, like you said, are that kind of author or writer who likes to engage with other people, especially your readers, use that power because when you write something, and you let me know your personal experience, but when you write something, maybe let's say you're working on the cover and you have the idea of what you want it to be, but that may not be what your reader wants it to be. So I think a few months back, you doing something about that voting of various book covers and letting people kind of decide and help kind of gear you to what the reader actually wants, which can be a little different than what the author expects.
That's so true. That's so true. And I think you make a really interesting point there because there's an important balance, right? If you are an author who's going to be very swayed in the making of your own art by what your readers think, then that may be a danger for you. And you really do have to be able to divorce yourself from what your audience thinks and feels and what is right for you as an author, because there are absolutely times where readers may say, I don't like the direction this is going. And I have to be like, I understand that, but hang in there. Like, I'm bringing this somewhere. It may be stressing you out now, but this is where we're going. And I have to be confident enough in myself as an author and where I'm going and what I'm doing, that if that kind of feedback happens, that's okay. And for people who do still have a really kind of sensitive or maybe thin skin, you do not have to read your reader feedback. So that is a thing. And the great thing about Ream is that every author has the ability to offer only what they want in a way that's healthy for them. So there are some people who early access is what they give. Like me, you can read, you're literally reading the chapters as I write them. They are not edited. They may be run through a spell checker really quickly to make sure there's no like terrible grammar, but my readers know they are getting a first draft that I will be going back and editing, and they get to see that part of the process too. So I have to be okay with showing them the ground beef and them trusting me to give them a hamburger, right?
Yes.
And so if you're not confident in that part of it, then that may not be the right way for you to go. You may be more comfortable being like, you get the finished book early. You get a signed copy of the book if you're part of this tier, whatever that is that you're comfortable with. And I recommend to people when they're first getting started to only give, if you look at your process, there's usually something you can offer that's already part of your process and won't stress you out too much to offer. And that may be like, you get all my cut scenes, or you get behind the scenes, or you get, things that you're already working on so that you can just take that part of your process and slide it over. and it doesn't have to become an entirely new thing. But there are authors who only exist on Ream and serialize their fiction. It's just so many options. But yeah, you really do. When I did the book cover thing, I ran that through my readers group on Facebook. I ran that through Ream. I want to find out what my core readership cares about, because those, like I said, they're a sample of my ideal reader. Those are my super fans. Those are the people who pay to be able to read my work before anybody else sees it, which is amazing. um so yeah, getting their opinions on things like that, that's a huge deal.
Yeah, it is, and I'm glad you did point out like, and some authors might be okay with the readers really building out and creating your story. I'm a little bit of a control freak, so I'm the opposite, where it's like I have to be learn how to take advice and be able to do the give and shit, take aspect of it, because I am a person who's like, I like what I like, I want what I want.
Yes.
But it is such a cool platform. If anybody's listening and hasn't checked it out, do check out Ream, because just to see what it has to offer. And it is one of those serialized, as you said, experiences where you can actually follow the creative process of various writers and authors. And that is really neat, I think.
I think so too. And you mentioned like moving direct. So what made you decide like that was the right direction for you? Because I know it can be really, really scary to leave Amazon,
Mhm.
especially when so much of your income comes from there, or like to not rely on them entirely, right?
It was something that I was considering kind of early on last year. And with the kind of like the up and down with KDP, and my genre is not necessarily with the dark fantasy or the epic fantasy, it's not necessarily one of the genres that really super benefits on KDP's plan. And so, with all the issues on the counter side, that makes authors kind of be like hyperventilate with the consider of like going after pirated material and all that kind of stuff. And I know that some of my books have been pirated, and I was just wanted to play it safe. And so I had been looking into moving direct, but was hesitant because it's a big step and lots of learning curves and everything. But the real motivation kind of, I was heading that way, but it was very dragging my feet, and went to the 20 Books Conference, which is now going to be Author Nation. But listening to all those talks and getting that affirmation from other authors who had made that switch, that's kind of what got me going. And so within the month, I had at least set up my rudimentary shop and started going from there, and have been building out slowly since then. And I've enjoyed it, but I know, kind of like anybody, you were dabbling with selling direct, but I think I heard in a video that you weren't sure because you're routing printing through another company. Well, I'm one of those that definitely hand ships everything, which means yes, I'm losing a lot of time doing that, but there is give and take for everything. So, how was your experience selling direct on your end? Because I know you're either changing or thinking about changing how you structure that.
Yeah, so kind of similar to you, at the beginning of last year, I had been looking at selling direct because I'm like you, I'm super uncomfortable with Amazon having so much power over my career.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to use them for all they're worth, but I don't want them to be able to basically chop my career in half just by deciding I can't have a Kindle Unlimited account anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking into that. I had built my Shopify store, and I was looking at how can I drive traffic, because I know that I want to be able to control my reader experience. I know that I want to be able to offer them more than just one particular book. Because if you think about the way that Amazon functions, they don't want to sell more of your books. They just want to sell more books. So when somebody
Mm-hmm.
buys your book, the also bots is all of these other authors who are within the sphere. Amazon doesn't really care whether or not you're profitable as long as they're profitable. So they're
Mm-hmm.
happy to use everybody within their ecosystem in any way that best benefits them. And we just have to try to figure out how to exist successfully within what they're doing. And instead, with a Shopify store, I can really customize that experience to be best for my readers and for me and the things that my readers like. And so I can offer them not only the books, but I can do a book package. I can do a book bundle. I can do a digital book box, which is something I'm doing now, where if they want to, when they buy the book, they can also get the illustrations from the book, they can get recipes from the book, they can get printables, all of these things that they can just download along with the book to give them the full experience of the world. So now if somebody decides they want to buy Vanished, they can get the digital book box, and there's ambient tracks that they can listen to that sound like places from the book. They can, it's an entire experience, instead of somebody looking for ways to manipulate them in order to get them to buy more things. So I knew I wanted to do that. And I want to build a long-term book. I don't want to be an authorpreneur. I don't want to be constantly relearning how to exist on these platforms that were never built for my benefit. I want to build my home place and then try to teach readers to meet me there, so that my career isn't constantly in jeopardy by one platform changing something or other. So I already knew I was going in that direction. And the more that I learned about it, the more I leaned into it. And at this point, I have my Shopify store. I'm not running ads to it through Facebook right now, but for a while I was running ads and driving traffic there from Facebook. Then I connected it to my TikTok shop, because I thought, okay, TikTok is really wanting to make TikTok shop work. So I'll connect that to my Shopify store, see if that increases my reach, see if that increases my sales. It absolutely did. The problem is I work with Book Vault, because I don't want to spend, like you said, it's a really big investment of time to ship everything direct. It's also an investment upfront in product. And if you buy 150 books from Ingram Spark and 50 of them are damaged, you either just have to eat that cost or be okay with selling damaged books to folks, and them knowing, and there are absolutely readers who will jump on that for a discount, but it's a question of your upfront investment, right? And so I would rather at that point work with a company who can do direct shipping for me. So somebody puts in an order on my website, that goes to Book Vault, they fulfill it, they direct ship it, and I have no part of that process at all. And that just puts less work on me in the long run, so that I can spend my time writing and making art, which is what I want to do. So I think that the great thing about moving in this direction is that you can customize this experience to what works best for you, and not have to build your workflow around what is best for the platform that you are trying to sell through.
No, and that is definitely the way I think that to go, because I know with every new platform, there's going to be people who fall in love with it, and then that's the one place they want to be, and they don't want to spread themselves out. But if there was, these places where it's like, hey, everyone, this is where my hub is. It's not going to be a link to this social or this. If you want to come and hang out, or you want to come get the experience, or, go here. And I know that's, I think, one of the reasons, not for the selling side, but it's yet another one. But I think a lot of people like the Discord because it was very engaging, and you could create your custom community if you're, again, wanting that, feedback. But again, you're talking about how you're starting to do Ream, and there are more and more authors going direct, which are, allowing the readership to find them and have a place to go directly to them without a lot of these middlemen or other platforms kind of standing in the way of you and your potential success.
For sure. Yeah. Because they don't really want people to follow you. They don't want them to follow you where it's best for you. They want to keep them on platform, which is why they are constantly us authors who sell through Amazon are tiny Amazon marketing machines. We are a lead magnet. We get people onto Amazon so they can buy other things. That is the entire purpose of the book part, especially the ebook part of Amazon. And we, because they own so much of the market share, we don't have much of a choice. We just go around funneling everybody to Amazon, and all of our efforts are spent sending people to Amazon. What would happen if all of our efforts were spent sending people to the places that were best for us? If we were funneling people to our own websites, if we were doing that instead? And it absolutely takes a little bit of training on the part of the audience, because of course used to going where they're the most comfortable to spend their money. And so it does require a little bit of education. It requires a little bit of incentive, which is personally why when people buy, like the versions of my books on my website are better than the versions of the book on Amazon. They have special formatting, they have special interiors, they have special covers, like the cover of Blood and Silver, the art cover, which is Scoot. Which is this one right here, can only be bought on my website. It doesn't exist anywhere else. So as an incentive to somebody to not shop on Amazon, I'm hoping that doing cool things that are exclusive to my website is a thing that will drive them in that direction. Because some people will do it just because they want to support you, but those are usually the people who are engaging with you directly, right? Which is why TikTok is so powerful. But to get other people to do it, they usually have to have a good reason because we're creatures of habit. So I just feel like authors have to stop existing for the benefit of bigger companies and start existing for our own benefit. And I mean, the benefit of our readers, but like, you know.
Yes. The communities that you can develop and control, and again, without the business entities on the outside who want it for me. For whatever, like you said, the Zon, or I don't know, I've never worked with Barnes & Noble, but all the big companies that are in it for themselves. But it's nice when authors can kind of, again, take that control in their own hands. Now with you are, again, I feel like you're a prolific writer, and that is one of the reasons why you're trying to create this special way to funnel and train readers to be like, come and support me here, because that not only allows me to give you extra stuff, but because you're not working as much, you yourself can write more, which means you can turn out more books and more work, and it's a good system to kind of build out. So what projects or projects are you working on right now?
Okay, I will share that, but real quick, just to say hi, Hedgebet is in the comments. This is her shirt. It says, reconnecting with my fiendish intentions.
I love it.
When I saw it on her TikTok, I was like, oh, I got it. I'm getting that. That's mine.
I love that.
So right now I'm working on, I know, isn't it great? I'm working on finishing the Gwen St. James affair. So I am literally just a few chapters away from writing the rest of book 5. It's like in front of me right now. So I am close to that. And then I am slowly working on The Cutthroat King, which is, little author tricksiness here for people who don't know. So it's really difficult to make money off a series because you need read through, right? And when book 1 is the only entry point into the series, you have to spend all your time selling book 1 and hope that people will just continue through the series. One of the ways that you can encourage people to pick up the series is by writing interconnected standalones that happen in the same world with characters that are in those books. So characters that exist within the Gwen St. James affair, side characters who are they're very cool. Like these two characters right here are side characters from the Gwen St. James affair, and this is their story that happens before the books start. Those interconnected standalones are great entry points into the series because you get a chance to be introduced to the world, you get a chance to be introduced to those characters, and hopefully be interested enough that you pick up the series, because then you're like, I like this writer, I like their writing, and these characters are cool. Oh, they're also over here? Yes, please. So The Cutthroat King is a bad guy. He's a bad guy, but immediately my readers were like, so tell us about this villain. Like, tell us more about this bad guy. He's the literal king of the underworld. And they were just immediately like, we get that he's a bad guy, but so he's getting his own novel. I just finished the first chapter of that. So yeah, that's going to be fun. And then I am slowly working on my cozy fantasy, which if I could kind of set everything else aside and just write the cozy, I would. But I have obligations, and so I have to do those things first. But those are kind of the 3 things that are in the cooker right now. The Cutthroat King will come out before book 6 of the Gwen St. James affair because there are some, not spoilers, but there's additional world information that is tied to the story that happens in that book. And it will be a standalone, but you'll get a fuller picture of what's actually happening if you read that between book 5 and 6. So yeah, but that's like that's where my projects are pointed right
With
now.
the way you're building out with your standalones that tie into a main series, and the author I talked with last week, Andy Peliquin, kind of does stuff like that, where a lot of his books will kind of somehow all be tangled together in a way. So if you like this, and even though there may be slightly different vibes or whatever, they're still all maybe in the same universe, or they cross paths, and again, you catch a reader here and you pull them there, and it's kind of really cool. So when you're writing all these, again, the standalones, the main series, maybe you do a spin-off series, whatever, or do you have a way to tell your readers, yes, you can read these independently, but what is your idealistic route? Are you going to like let readers know, or they just pick up one of the books and go from there?
So I think that's kind of the fun thing. First, you mentioned, the other author talking about all of the worlds being interconnected. When I started my first series, which is the Founding Trilogy, as part of the Eververse Chronicles, which will expand one day when I have the time to write them. The idea with that story is that there are, as in multiverse theory, multiple different, in mine, versions of Earth where you can kind of Schrodinger's cat them. Like the realities split at the point of a decision that would affect a lot of people. And there are certain people who, for whatever reason, are just more influential in making those decisions. And if people could jump between those different versions of Earth, what would happen? What would they do? If there were enough of them, would they find a way to police themselves? Would they meet each other? Would they form a society? Like, what would that look like, right? And so everything I write technically exists within the Eververse, because if there are forever versions of Earth, then the Gwen St. James Affair universe absolutely exists within that greater sphere, which is not like the Cosmere, right? Like Sanderson's Cosmere, because those kind of are like, they could potentially exist within the same galaxy. These exist within different versions of reality. And the way that they're connected is the fact that there are people who can travel between them. So there's a very real chance that we could see characters from the first series show up randomly. I don't have to tell you that they're there, but people who have read them would recognize it, right? So like that's kind of like the first like bigger schema that I have. But then with the Gwen St. James Affair itself, my readers were already hungry for more in-world stories because they like this world a lot. They were already really interested in several of these side characters and were asking me about them. Will so-and-so get their own book? And I'm like, I could do that. So they will, any of the standalones can absolutely be standalones, but in the back of the book, not even at the end, I did not put this in the end matter. I stuck it on the last page. At the end of the book, underneath the end, it's like, if you want to keep reading in this world, scan the barcode, like you could follow the link. Like if you want to find out what happens to these characters afterwards, head over here. And immediately it's like, if you want to read the exclusive epilogue, it's over here. If you want to keep following Alex and Cyrus on their adventures, it's over here. And each book will have that, as well as at the very end, the series. So the different series that I've written, where they're at, nice. Where they fall in everything. And I probably will at some point build like a timeline tree on my website so that people can see chronologically where everything is. But right now, my main goal is just to give them an immediate way to get to the next thing.
Oh yeah, and I do like the QR code. I've like started doing that, where like embedding in and being like, here's a live link, here's a QR code, here's whatever you do, because the best thing is when the author is coming off their buzz from the book, and you catch them there and be like, well, story continues, or well, there is also the side story, and right. Keep them wanting more.
100%, yeah.
I love it.
So I have this idea. I'm just going to randomly throw it at you because I've been really curious about this, and you have to tell me what you think. And for folks in the comments right now, readers and other authors, this is for you guys too, which you can steal this if you want to, but tell me what you think in the comments. I have this idea that I would like to at certain places in the book have a QR code with a video from the story. So maybe you get to a certain scene, it has a QR code, you scan it, it opens up like a 5, 10, 15-second video of something happening in the book. Now, I could do that with models or actors, I might do that with illustration, but I'm wondering, would that break the immersion, or would it be like an extra cool thing where you'd be like, oh, I just saw him touch her hand, or, like, oh my God, that fight scene, or something like that. Like, do we want that? Would that be a cool multimedia thing, or would it just break the immersion in the book?
I can't remember what her name, but I have talked to an author, and it wasn't a video. Now that's really cool. That wasn't a video, but what she did was she embedded something very similar where you picked up a soundtrack of music that inspired her at those moments. So it was like this audio sync that you got to a moment. And it was like, this is the mood, or this is the song that inspired, and you could go and read it and then, be listening to the music that the author kind of was influenced by, or, thought meshed well. And again, made it just an extra sensory experience. So that might be something fun to try if you are capable of, getting the shots you want. But
I'm very intrigued by the idea.
The only downside potentially is depending on the scene and what you're doing, or will you show an actor's face? Because there's a lot of people who, are like, I have the vision of the character in my head, I don't want that. And then other people actually like that because it may be harder for them to imagine, and so they like that. But that is something to think about. Are you going to do scenes where it's only a hand, or you're moving around, maybe a voice, or are you going to actually show them those characters?
Right. So some people are already mentioning a couple things in the comment, which is amazing. So yes, I would have my own website. Things would be hosted there. There would be the potential, if I was looking for more traffic, like to YouTube, that you could host them on YouTube or Vimeo or something like that. So maybe, like make those available. I would do it on my website. But that is a thing that you'd have to figure out. So that would probably be experimentation, right? Because if it was with actors, I probably would never show their faces directly. You probably would see like things from the back, hands, clothing, action, stuff like that. I can imagine it would be especially successful with romance, I can imagine that would be particularly successful. But so I'm going to the UK shortly. I'm going to be walking around York. I'm going to try to head through the shambles at nighttime. I would love to get video that helps really set the scene. And maybe that would be a good place to start experimenting. But yeah, I think you would have to be very careful. And unless, let's say, if I had my way, like if I could do this with my dreams, right? I would hire an artist. I would do a Kickstarter. I would have that artist do animation for me. And then that is what we would get. Like somebody, you could read through the book, you would open it up, it would be animated. It wouldn't be super long because it's not a movie, right? Yeah. It's meant to just enhance the experience of the book. There would be music, etc. The possibilities are really endless, but yeah, so Kat just mentioned, I was thinking of all the abs and pecs people would start putting videos. They totally would. Imagine like the Mr. Darcy hand scene in your romance novels, right? Like you wouldn't even have to show anybody's face. It would just be, there's so many possibilities, and it makes my creative ADHD brain light up really bad, but it would be expensive.
Yes.
If you didn't really invest in it to do a good job, it could detract. It could be a not great thing if you didn't do it really well, which of course requires a little bit of money. So
well, and like you mentioned, Kickstarter, more and more authors are also going to that route to help fund them for different things, be it I don't have enough funding to go into audiobooks, and they're doing that, or I want a special edition, and
right.
They go into that. And so more and more people are using it, and I think because of that, more and more readers are starting to take advantage of those perks as well. So it's, again, retraining the book buying community of how you get your next read, and Kickstarter is one of those platforms. And for something like this, that's a little edgy outside the box, it might be kind of interesting to see. And because that would be a great way to get that funding, then to turn around and be like, I got the animator, I got the sound, the music designer, what score writer. I can't think of the right word. It's late. I'm tired. Whatever. But the point being is put all the great minds together and create this pseudo cinematic literary experience.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think with so much of what we do moves toward multimedia in a lot of ways anyway. Um, and oh, look, Kat's doing heart puffs. That's
I
the
know it.
sweetest. A lot of what we do is moving toward multimedia in so many ways, and the people so far who have downloaded my digital book box are so jazzed about the ambient tracks because it's not like here's what I was listening to when I wrote it. It is this is what this location sounds like. If you were to sit in Gwen's study, which is kind of a major set piece and location in the books, if you were to
Mm-hmm.
sit in there, this is what it would sound like. You would hear the butler walking down the hall. You would hear the stirring of tea in a glass. You would hear the turning of pages and the scribbling of a pen. You would hear the crackling of the fire and the rain on the window pane and horse-drawn carriages cruising by on the cobblestone streets outside. Like, these are all of the things you would hear. And so they're like, what's like, they love it. And even just adding that, like reading those scenes while hearing that, we're already pushing into like expanding the worlds that we've created so
Mm-hmm.
much. And I think if you could do that also with visuals that enhance rather than take away, like that could be really incredible. And then maybe open up the possibility for additional types of media in within your IP.
Now I'm super fascinated about your ambient soundtracks. Is that something that you are on a platform, you literally picking these sounds and kind of putting them together yourself, or how do you find or create these soundtracks? Because if you're so specific, that is exactly the sound of your locations. I'm assuming you're creating or designing them somehow.
I am, yes. So I'm lucky that my brother is a musician. And he actually, so he has written two songs for the Gwen St. James Affair that are actually in the audiobook. So, like the introduction, when you open the audiobook, that is the sound, like he created that song. And he turned me onto a platform called Splice. And Splice is kind of for music producers, but it has a whole bunch of samples and loops and just all kinds of sound effects and tracks and everything. And so if you have a monthly membership, you get a certain amount of credits. And so I will go in and I will find the sounds and I will take them into GarageBand and I will layer them and I will scatter them and I will, change how they sometimes you might hear like there's a one for New London, which is the city that the main city that the story takes place in. And you hear carts going by, you hear cars, you hear footsteps, you hear money changing hands, you hear people yelling, you can hear roosters, you can hear smiths, like all of these different sounds. And it does take a little bit of time and patience because you do have to put them in different places at different levels and loop certain things, and so it does take a little while, but the final result I feel like is such a cool way to bring the world to life. Which is another reason why Ream is so valuable, because my readers are paying me to do this. They want that stuff. That's part of their tier. They get to download any ambient track I make in my Ream library. It has all of my books, so all of my books are there that they can either read them for their subscription fee, or if they're in a high enough tier, they get to download the file and just have it. And then all of the audio. There is a song, a kind of a lullaby in book 2. We found
Mm-hmm.
somebody to sing it. My brother made music for it, and it is there as well. So like, there's all of these different ways that you can bring the world to life, and that all exists within it. They're paying me for that, so I get to do it. I'm not like slaving away in my free time when I should be like hanging out with my family. That's part of my job now because I've built it that way, right? So I'm sorry if I'm babbling. I just get
Oh
really
no, I'm
excited.
super fascinated. My gears in the back of my head are spinning, and I'm like, ooh. The problem is that I have so many projects. I have to be like, sit down, finish one before I start another one. But I love learning things like this because I'm like, right, I have a sticky note. So I'm like, make notes, and I stick it on my wall, and hopefully eventually I can get to that project and be like, come back to this later. My wall is sticky notes. How do you keep track of things?
You have so much more
Mine's
patience than
chaotic.
me. I'm like squirrel.
That's That's exactly true. And I see a comment pop up. I'm thinking about that too, but my problem is that I am deaf, so wouldn't be able to tell if it sounds good or bad. I guess with that, you could probably get someone you trust to kind of help you design that, but you would have to find someone you trust because you can work around sensory issues, I think. But again,
Yeah, for
I
sure.
haven't done it,
Yeah,
so.
and yeah, yeah, and find like that the sounds are just a thing that I picked because I'm lucky enough to have a brother who is a musician and I could take advantage of that. But
Mhm.
there's visual things there. I mean, with my book boxes, I make physical things as well. So my high tier subscribers are actually getting teacups that I've made myself. Like I threw them on the pottery wheel. They have handles. They have been fired. I actually have to go paint them tomorrow. So they're getting those from me that I made myself, but that's only because I'm already an artist. So each author would have to figure out like how they want to build that in a way that feels good for them and takes advantage of their strengths and things that their readers would love and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, like all of this just leaves the option open to do so many things. And I think the traditional, so self publishing as it exists right now was built on the back of the traditional publishing industry, which was always for the benefit of shareholders. It was always for the benefit of the people who had the money and power to create channels of distribution and do the
Mhm.
marketing. They have the power, and you are just a very small cog in the machine. But what we failed to realize is that all of the value is derived from what we do, and we are letting someone else make all of the money off of it. Now, there are good reasons to do that. If you don't have the time, if you don't have the information, if you don't have the ability to do all of those things for yourself or to hire people who can,
Yeah.
you have to rely on somebody who has that knowledge. However, for the people who are like me and who are very anti-establishment and also very headstrong and have problems with authority, I don't want somebody else taking all of the money for the things that I worked really hard to do. So I am
Mhm.
willing to put in the insane extra effort required to be the one who benefits and to be able to pass that on to my reader. So because I don't have 50 extra people to pay, my readers can get really cool things cheaper than they would if I had an insanely high overhead and all of these additional people that I have to, I have to take care, I would have to take care of if I had my publishing house. Because of that, we did not build a publishing schema or like a framework or a mechanism that's best for us. We just exist within the framework that was already built and is best for them. And that is why I'm such a big proponent of Ream, because it is giving it to an author and saying, here is a place to do this. You don't have to build it for yourself, but you can make whatever is like best for you and the way you want to work within this. And there's no, a lot of readers and authors on Amazon who write like erotica or like erotic romances. They will get consigned to the dungeon if they accurately categorize that, because Amazon doesn't want people to have that. Ream is not a place where that happens. There are authors making 6+ figures from Ream alone based on
Mhm.
writing erotica for their readers or erotic romances for their readers. Like, hi, can you come back in just a little bit? It's
That.
my fifth grader. But that, like that is a thing that exists, and it gives authors a lot more freedom to reinvent the way we do publishing.
Mhm.
We don't have to do it the way it was traditionally done. If
Oh yeah.
I want to take 10 minutes every day and read a chapter on TikTok and monetize that so that people can read a chapter or watch me read, if I want to get a fairy costume on and set up this space to look magical and read to my readers to release my audiobook, I can do that. We like it doesn't have to be done the way
Mhm.
that it used to be.
Yep. Now, this is a question I have because I'm again very curious and not there yet, trying to finish other things first. But when it comes to Ream, is Ream a digital only platform, or how does that work when it comes to what your readers get on various tiers? Because I know you talk about the digital book box and printing out, your first drafts, chapter at a time, in serial fashion. Like, how do or what kind of things can you offer, and what limitations does it have at this point?
For sure. So I pulled it up just so I can kind of read a few things off. But the first thing to notice is that Ream has actually introduced discoverability now. So if you were to go to reamstories.com, you can search for fantasy authors, you can search for romance authors, you can like search for fantasy within there, and you will get now a list of authors who write in those genres.
Ooh.
And if you click on their profile, you'll be able to see what it is that they offer readers. So they like the discoverability now exists on there, when in the past you'd have to bring an audience with you. Now you have the potential to have people who are already on Ream find you and subscribe. So for me, I have 3 main tiers and 1 big one. And this is kind of what it looks like. So the first tier is the Eververse Explorer tier. And for that, it's $5 a month. People get to read every novel as I write it, 1 chapter at a time. They get access to the first 5 chapters of every novel in my library and early publishing updates. So if I have cool new updates to share, it goes there first. And then for my second tier, those folks get every full book early. So they get everything in the first tier. They get access to my entire ebook library as long as they're a member. So for $10, they can read everything in my library. And if they're a fast reader, they could potentially get through my entire library in a month, which means it would be cheaper for them to become a member and read all my books than it would for them to buy them individually, or even to have a Kindle Unlimited subscription. Mm-hmm. They get digital downloads of the character and world art that I make every month. So there's a book that has links in it where they can go to a Google Drive folder and download everything. And then exclusive bonus content. So if I have deleted scenes or deleted chapters or whatever, they get that stuff as well. And then Gwen's Guild is the $20 a month tier. And they get, of course, everything in the previous tiers plus digital. So they get the downloadable files for every ebook, audiobook, and all music commissioned for the series that they get to keep forever. So that is theirs. We hang out live online 1 time a month. We get together in a stream that's private just for us, and we get to talk about stuff, and they can ask me questions, and sometimes I read to them from the books, or we just do whatever. They get to vote on which bookish art gets made, so they suggest what art they want, and then they vote on it after that, and I will make whatever it is that they voted on. And then once every month they get to choose one of the art prints, and then I ship them quarterly. So every quarter they get whatever 3 prints they chose, signed by me. And those, oh, look out, Bubba's. Here are the examples of what went out this month. So this is a location in the books. I don't know if that's like visible, but this is a print of, thank you, of that location. This is a scene. This is going to look really bright because it's got a lot of white in it, but it's not this bright, I promise. So this is a scene from Blood and Silver, and that's Gwen. So she's introduced first in that book and then goes on to the other series. And then I sign those and I ship them to them once a quarter. And then for my highest tier, so that's the first one that gets physical, something physical. When somebody signs up for a physical tier, it lets them know that that tier has physical benefits, and so they provide their shipping address, whatever that is. And then my $60 a month tier is, of course, everything that's already there, and then they get a bookish box once per quarter filled with handmade and curated goodies and art illustrated by me. So some of the boxes have included things like these potions went out in one of the boxes, which has alchemical ether, it's mentioned in the books. So they got these cool little potions. Like I said, they're getting teacups that I hand through and made myself. So they got I will sometimes work with local artists who make stickers. I got beeswax candles from a local New Mexico farm, and I gave them labels from a location that's in the books. I hand embroidered bookmarks with their initials on them, and like some little fall designs and stuff. So like they get a really, really special box that's like handmade. They get membership to the Gweniverse Discord community, a signed and personalized copy of any book published while they're a member. And I usually publish anywhere from 2 to 5 books a year. So 2 books is a safe bet for me. But in any case, they would get that signed and sent by me. And here's the cool part. They get short story voting rights. So twice a
I
year, they
love
get to
that.
say, I really want a short story about Percy because I need to know like something else about his life. Where did he come from? And if they vote on that the most, I will write that short story. And then a signed collector's edition welcome card upon entering the tier. So like I have chosen that stuff. That is a limited tier because that's a lot of work.
Hmm.
So there's like a limited amount of space in there. But like I set those up because of who I am as an author and a person. Like I want to make stuff. I want to create worlds. I want to make those worlds as vivid and live-inable as possible. And then I want
Hmm.
people to have proof that they exist.
Hmm.
So when they get things like this from the book, like it's a little physical proof that this world that they love is a thing. And like so physical, digital, audio, like all of those things can exist within this. And
That's
then
really
all
neat.
I have to do is open up my membership thing, grab everybody's address, stick it in the stick it in the thing and ship them out. Like, is it work? Yes, it is. That's why it costs $60 a month because it requires a lot. But the options are literally endless. And if you wanted to
Hmm.
hire, like we could do, so I can do a limited time tier instead of doing Kickstarter. I can do a limited time tier that costs $200 and it's only going to be there for a month and then it's going to get put away. But that could be because we want to commission an artist everybody loves to make a thing. Could
I think
100% do that. Like
that is really neat.
the options are endless.
That is fantastic. Yes, that's definitely something I should be. I should have probably already been looking into it. I don't know why. It just life seems well. I have actually been moving. This is my valid excuse for the last little bit. Have physically been moving, and as of this past weekend, finally finished moving the stuff here. Now, yeah, I have to unpack and all that, but life is slowly going to taper down and normalize, so I can actually have more time to focus on this kind of stuff. So, woo.
Yeah.
But no, that is so neat, and it does get your mind spinning on all different cool things. But I do want to ask, because the hour's slipping by, do want to ask a couple things because if this platform is very nice and lets me repurpose this on my YouTube channel, I'll make sure I put all your contact information down below, including your Ream, and so people can find, follow, subscribe, all kind of stuff. But let me ask the basics: where can people find, follow, subscribe you outside of book talk? And Ream.
Outside of book talk, I do have a Facebook readers group. So of course, like all of the links are in my bio right here on
Mhm.
TikTok and on Instagram as well. But I do have a Facebook readers group, and it is private for the protection of my. Well, it's not private, but the Discord is private. The Facebook readers group is there if people want to join that. I try to regularly host other authors in there, other indies, and introduce them to my readers because, like, my readers are the bestest, most enthusiastic people on the planet, and they will almost always buy people's books and show up to support them. Like,
Aw,
they're the
that's so sweet.
absolute best. Just love them so much. And then reamstories.com/Nicole McEwen. And the last name is McKeon. I know it looks like McKeon. I won't be mad at anybody for saying it that way, but my family pronounces it McEwen. Um, so that's a great place. And then my publishing business is towerroompublishing.com. And that's where all of my books are at, art is at. I have the commercial licensing images for my book covers. So I sell those as prints as well because they're really stinking pretty.
Mm-hmm.
But like everything, if they want to buy anything, all of that is on there. And then my website, either NicoleMcEwen.com, I own that one, or NicoleYork.com. They all go to the same place. And that is where my photography is there, information about me,
Love that.
lists of my books, all that kind of stuff.
And it is so nice because I'm a painter author, but you're an artist and all kind of things. You're already talking about like photography and digital work and your kiln, and it is so much fun finding people who are so artistic in multiple levels. But now that I've said all that, and we know you can buy, you still have your direct shop, correct? And I know you have your Ream. Where is there any other place you suggest people to get your work?
Really, I think so. TikTok Shop is connected to my store. So ultimately, if they want to purchase something from me, it's always coming from Tower Room Publishing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where all of the special versions, like the exclusive editions of my books, are all there. So if anybody wanted to get those, that is the best place to go, is towerroompublishing.com.
Perfect. And sorry, if you hear my whining dog behind the scenes, he's probably like, it's almost time for me, my turn. But the last thing I want to ask, and then for anybody who's listening, also, this can go for you. Is there any topic you wanted to cover that we didn't get to cover, or any questions that you had that you never got a chance to ask? So this goes for listeners as well as you, Nicole.
I've already talked so much.
Hey,
So
I wanted to learn, so I was
I
just
feel
like, ooh, fascinating. It is absolutely
sometimes my
fascinating.
noggin gets going and it doesn't stop. So
When can we
I want to know
expect
what
the
you are
next
working on and what is
book
coming
to
out
release?
next from you.
Sorry, what? I think we talked at the
I
same
want to
time.
know what you're working on and what is coming out next from you.
I'm working on too many projects. No, right now I recently finished up a Kickstarter, and this was for the fourth book of my young adult adventure quest-based portal fantasy set in a magical multiverse. And so that one is slotted to release towards the end of May, worst case beginning of June, but it's right around the corner. We're starting to do the formatting side of things, so we're getting there. We're getting there. And then as far as publishing this year, my goal is to publish the last 3 novellas for my adult Viking Dark Fantasy series, so I can finish up that series and get ready to gear up for new projects that I have been writing, because I'm always working probably about 2 years at least in advance of my publication. So I have a lot of projects that are kind of in various stages of editing, all that kind of stuff, but it's getting to the point where I'm finally about to finish my second full series, and I have to do the goodbyes to characters, and I'm not sure I'm ready for that.
Oh,
It is hard
yeah,
to think about.
it is. When I ended my first trilogy, I was so relieved. I was like, thank God, go away. I am done with you. You are finished. I don't know if I'll feel that way with the Gwen St. James affair, though. I have never, ever loved a character the way that I love Gwen. So
Aw.
I don't know.
Well, the nice thing, again, if you continue doing these kind of spin-offs and webs, you could always maybe have her like float in a chapter or two,
Oh,
come
yeah.
through.
Yeah,
See
she's
the
gotta.
eye
She's gotta.
scene.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I see a couple questions popping
Oh,
up, and
she's
we'll make
doing
sure we
that.
answer them. How do you build such detailed worlds, or do you have any tips? So, would you like to start this one off?
Go ahead. Because I'm
Oh, okay.
curious to know with
Uh,
all your big, complicated series.
well, here's the trick. It's like, for me, I write various kind of fantasy, a little more on the epic fantasy side, and so a lot of what I pull is based off mythos from around the world. So my Viking Dark Fantasy is a dark retelling of Nordic myth. It kind of was already pre-written for me in many ways. But when it comes to just developing worlds, I think one of the things you should always be aware of, and something that should be in the back of your mind, your environment affects your characters. Affects the creatures and vice versa. And I actually had a situation where my readers group on Facebook, I had them and walked them through a process, kind of a guided process of creating a creature, a monster that would be, the deal was you create it and I'll put it into my upcoming series that I'll be restarting to kick off in a few years. But I had to actually explain and be like, remember, now we have to find the ecosystem and how it thinks, because that all affects each other. And if you start writing with that awareness that a character affects its environment and vice versa, it can help you out and figure out where you want to go. But that's one of my tips. But how about you, Nicole? How do you kind of figure out how to set your world and build out?
First, I love that. I think that that's such an important thing to remember, that it is an environment and a character exists within an environment. They are not in a vacuum, and they don't get to develop how they think or what they believe or their worldview or anything else outside of that, which is, I think, a mistake sometimes authors may make if they're not very experienced at world building. You have a lot of these characters who sound as if they come from a different place. Because they're bringing an earthling worldview into like a second world system.
Yeah.
So like remembering that is such an important thing. So this is my best tip for building detailed worlds. Fake it. And what I mean by that is you find you find a few things that are stand-ins for the greater world building, things that the characters interact with regularly, things that are part of the set dressing, or maybe even things that they take for granted that kind of become symbols for the way that that world is different and the way that that environment is different. And that could be anything from clothing to details in the world. So dwarven lamps are something that is mentioned a lot in the Gwen St. James affair, because artifice exists in this world, and dwarves have kind of powered the Industrial Revolution through the use of artificery. And so they're of course making things that are useful, and one of those things is they will engrave street lamps that will then absorb sunlight during the day and release it at night, so there's no need for electric wires or gas or anything like that. And those lamps kind of do a lot of heavy lifting for the world building itself. Instead of having to info dump and say, people here don't use electricity like they did in actual Edwardian England, because here's all the reasons why. We just have dwarven lamps, and we have the characters use them, and we have the characters take them for granted as part of their world. And because of that not only gives you enough detail to infer more things, but it also allows the reader then to kind of populate the world with what makes sense in their minds to exist alongside that. So if a reader reads that and they think, oh, if they can do that, they probably can do these other kinds of things as well. And so they can make those assumptions, and then that makes them partners in the world building without me having to think of every single detail and find some way to work it into exposition, right? So I think for me, that's a big part of it. And then because I'm using Victorian/Edwardian England as a template, most people are familiar with that in some way. And so their current knowledge is actually doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the world building. So a lot of the reviews for my books will be like, the world building is so good. And I think what they're actually experiencing isn't necessarily the world building as much as it is the evocativeness of the way I describe the world. And I think that makes it feel real, because I'm not doing a whole lot of work for the world building. I'm not writing lore and doing, I'm not Sandersoning it. I'm not Tolkiening it. I'm cheating. I'm cheating a lot. So
cheating with finesse. I love it. And I do see a question also aimed for you for anybody who wants to start and begin dabbling with Ream. What kind of tips do you have, and what do you wish you knew when you started getting into Ream?
Ooh, so the answer to that will apply to Ream, and it's also actually going to apply broader. So hopefully people need to hear this as much as I need to hear it regularly. Just go. Don't try to make it perfect. Don't try to do all of the research first and have every answer before you get started. Just do it. Just go start. You will figure out what you need to know on the way, because the biggest thing we have to overcome is entropy, right? Everything wants to not work. Everything wants to shut down. You have to overcome that and get moving. The hardest part of forward motion is that initial inertia. Getting the inertia to go is the hardest part. And if you have to wait till you're perfect, it's never going to happen. Perfection isn't a thing that exists. You're never going to know everything. You're never going to be infallible. You're never going to get to a point where you won't make a mistake. So just go and figure it out along the way. You can change tracks if you're moving. If you're stationary, you're doing zero. So don't think so hard that you think yourself into stasis. Just go. You'll figure it out. Do that with your books. According to traditional wisdom, I should not have published my first 3 books. Because everybody's first book is crap, right? Screw it. I'm publishing it. If there's a potential that somebody out there might like it, I'm going to do it. I'm learning my lessons and I'm figuring it out as I go.
Yes.
And every time I do something, I'm making a mess and I'm going, "Oh, okay, this is what I needed to know." I don't know what I need to research until I'm actually at the point and going, "Oh, this isn't working." Like I didn't know that I needed to know this thing until I encountered a problem. That's the only way. So just go. Trust yourself to figure it out. Salto mortale, jump off the cliff. You will grow wings on the way down. It's the only way to make it happen is just to do it, you know?
Yeah, and I definitely love that point of your first book because there's so many people who I also included, when you start off with your writing endeavors and you fall in love with your book, why else are you writing it? And you want your first book to be a success. You do. I mean, it is, I call them book babies, but kind of like your child, you're with them for forever, you're learning together, publish it and you want it to be the best thing. But here's the thing. Do you want your first book to be the best one? Or do you want your second one to be better than the first one and the third book to be better than the second one, and you always continue to step forward? So if you don't start somewhere, you're never going to start. So publish your book. Will it be the best one? Honestly, you probably don't want it to be. You want to keep improving every time you release a book. So that's at least my thing. And so, yes, mistakes are going to be made along the way. I have made most of them. but that helps you at least start doing your little stepping stones to get toward your end goal at some point.
100%.
Well, thank you for coming out and hanging out with me. I know I hear my dog pacing, and that usually means it's hitting that 8 o'clock hour for me. But
Right.
I'm so glad we got to come together and reconnect. Again,
Yes.
loved meeting you last fall. I don't know if I don't know if you're attending to Go to Author Nation this year. You are? Okay.
I'm gonna try.
Then I'm going to see you again.
Yeah. Yes.
We can sit into different sessions together. But I really do appreciate for you coming out and hanging out because you are an inspiration, and I follow your stuff, and I'm just awed by what you do. So it's pretty cool.
Thank you for having me. I so appreciate it. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I need to go back and be with my peoples because the author life is very lonely.
I don't know. I loved it. I loved that event, and that's why I was like, I have to go again. But until then, I hope your endeavors continue to blossom and boom and Ream bills out for you. And I know I'm probably going to pester you behind the scenes and ask you every little detail of what I need to do when I get to the point of setting it up and be like, please teach me your ways, wise one. But as far as everything else, I need to peace out and let my dog out. But thank you so much for listening. Yes. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, Nicole. You. And until the next time, everyone, have a wonderful evening.
Mwah!
Bye.